I've started to grasp framework 2. I understand that my beliefs shape my reality. But who is the I that's doing the believing? Seth talks about probable selves, simultaneous time, reincarnational selves. It feels like me is a much bigger thing than I thought. If all my probable selves exist now, and all my past and future lives exist now, who am I really?
Probable realities are as real as this one. The physical senses are lovely, specialized perception tools, but they limit you to a very narrow band of reality.
Oh, wow. I mean, just hearing that out loud it's heavy.
It really is. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the mission for our deep dive today is to explore that exact thing. We're going to map out the vast, multidimensional architecture of the self.
Right, because we need to go beyond that narrow band,
Yep,
right?
exactly. We are venturing way beyond those physical senses to understand the literal structure of human consciousness and identity itself.
Okay, let's unpack this, because, I mean, that is a massive, dizzying undertaking.
It definitely challenges everything we think we know.
Yeah, totally. Because we're talking about stepping entirely outside the boundaries of what we've been taught to consider, real. Like you and I and everyone listening right now, we're all just so profoundly accustomed to identifying exclusively with the face we see in the mirror.
Right, the physical reflection.
Exactly. We're trained to view our existence as this single unbroken timeline stretching from birth to death. But the Seth material, which was channeled by Jane Roberts, it doesn't just challenge that view. It completely dismantles it.
It really does. It shatters it,
Yeah.
honestly.
It presents a diagnosis of human identity that is so expansive it actually breaks the machinery of our everyday logic.
Hmm.
So, I mean, where do we even begin to map out this architecture? Like, how do we start to understand what we actually are?
Well, I think we must begin by looking at the literal mechanics of choice. In the Seth model of identity, we start with the concept of the branching reality.
Okay, like probable selves.
Yes, specifically the existence of probable selves.
Hmm.
Now, what's fascinating here is the sheer physics of this idea.
Physics. We're talking about metaphysics, aren't we?
Well, Seth treats it like physics. Every time you make a decision, you create a probable reality where you made the alternate choice. And I want to be incredibly precise here. This is not a metaphor.
Right. It's not just a thought experiment.
No, not at all. It is not a psychological fantasy or like a visualization tool.
Yeah.
According to Seth, it is the literal structural reality of consciousness.
So you're saying the other me who took a different job or, moved to a different city.
It was as real, as vital, and as valid as the you listening to this deep dive right now.
Wait, I need to stop you right there and push back on this.
All right.
Because my brain is already rejecting it. I mean, I can accept the idea that my mind explores different options before I make a choice,
Sure, like weighing pros and cons.
Right. I can accept that my consciousness is creative. But you were saying that if I stand at a crossroads and choose to go left, an entirely physical universe is instantly generated where I went right, just because I made a choice. I mean, that sounds like infinite timeline theory from a sci-fi movie. And frankly, it sounds computationally impossible.
I get that. It sounds impossible only because we are deeply conditioned to view consciousness as a byproduct of the physical brain. We think of it as this closed system trapped inside your skull.
Well, yeah, because that's what science teaches us.
Exactly. But Seth insists that consciousness is not a closed system. It is a gestalt. It's this infinitely expansive family of selves.
You just scold. Okay, so how does that solve the sci-fi universe generation problem?
Well, when you stand at that crossroads and make a choice, you are directing a specific stream of psychic energy into the physical world. But what happens to the energy of the unchosen path?
I always just assumed it disappeared, like it just dissolved.
Right. But in Seth's framework, consciousness is way too vital, too dynamic to simply waste that energy. It doesn't just cut off the unchosen path, it fully actualizes it.
Oh, wow. So it actually lives it out.
Exactly. It explores it in a parallel reality structure. It isn't generating a whole new physical universe from scratch, like out of nothing. It is simply activating a different probability sequence within the medium of Framework 2.
Right, Framework 2, the massive psychological dimension underlying our physical world.
Precisely. It's the inner medium where all these probabilities have room to play out.
Okay, so the consciousness that I am, like the root of me, is essentially deploying different probes into different probability streams. But how deep does this go? Are we just talking about major life decisions?
You mean like who you marry or what career you choose?
Yeah, exactly. Does it only happen for the big stuff?
Well, this raises an important question because the mechanism is much deeper than just conscious human choices. It happens on a micro level, even biologically.
Wait, really? Biologically?
Yes. Seth points out that even on a cellular level, your physical cells literally straddle
I'm
probabilities.
trying to wrap my head around that. A biological cell making a choice.
They're constantly triggering responses from a rich, invisible bank of probable activity. Your physical body is not a static object.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy because this idea of biological rendering is crucial to understand. Like, imagine a massive, state-of-the-art video game rendering engine.
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
Right. So in this engine, every possible branch of the game's narrative, every choice the player could ever make, every blade of grass that could wave in the wind, is being rendered and played out simultaneously by the system's underlying code.
The data for all of it exists at once.
Exactly. But our physical senses, our eyes, our ears, our nervous system, they act as a highly restrictive, locked-in VR headset.
A very narrow band of perception.
Right. They force us to look at just one screen, one single character's path, and they block out the infinite other screens that are running right alongside us in the engine.
That is an excellent mechanical visualization. Your physical senses are specifically designed to limit you.
Because otherwise we'd just short circuit.
Exactly. If you perceived all your probable realities at once, if your headset suddenly showed you thousands of screens, your conscious ego would be completely overwhelmed.
I mean, I'd probably just fall over.
You wouldn't be able to butter your toast, let alone navigate a complex human life. The physical senses force you to perceive action in a specific linear sequence.
To ensure our focus remains sharp in this particular physical dimension.
Right. But just because your headset is locked onto one screen doesn't mean the rest of the rendering engine ceases to exist. Those other probable selves, those other screens, they are inviolate.
Wow. So they just keep going.
Yes, once a pattern of consciousness is formed through a choice, it follows its own nature. It grows, it learns, and it forms its own independent identity structure.
Which means the choices you like, the listener listening to this right now, aren't lost. They are being lived.
They are actively being experienced.
That is a staggering comfort, honestly. But it's also, intensely disorienting. Because if all these probable selves exist and are living out their lives, when exactly is all of this happening?
Now we get at the nature of time.
Right, because we are so deeply conditioned to think of time as a linear river. We feel like we are in a raft, just being swept downstream.
Yesterday is upstream and gone.
Yeah, and tomorrow is downstream and hasn't arrived yet. And we are just bobbing along in the current of today. But Seth says past, present, and future are simultaneous.
Yes, all happening at once.
But how is that possible if my physical body ages from day to day? I mean, I have wrinkles I didn't have 10 years ago.
The linear river of time is a brilliant illusion. It is a necessary construct created entirely by the neurological processing of the physical brain.
Okay, so it's a feature of the VR headset.
Exactly. To understand simultaneous time, it is helpful to shift from the river analogy to the analogy of a wheel.
A wheel. Okay, I'm picturing it.
Think of your past, present, and future not as points on a straight timeline, but as infinite spokes on a massive wheel. All of those spokes, representing every moment you will ever experience, are connected to the central hub.
And the hub is the present.
Yes, that central hub is the eternal present moment. Because all time exists simultaneously, any action, emotion, or deeply held belief in the present hub vibrates outward along the spokes.
Wait, so it instantly affects both the past and the future?
It does.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge this. I understand how my present actions affect the future. Like if I decide to eat healthy today, my future body changes. That makes logical sense.
Right, cause and effect.
But you are saying my present beliefs vibrate outward and alter the past. My past already happened. The events are fixed in history.
Are they, though?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I broke my leg when I was 10, I can't sit here in the present and unbreak it. So what does Seth actually mean when he says we alter the past?
What's fascinating here is the precise biological and psychological mechanism Seth proposes for this. He states that you cannot scientifically examine cellular structure as it exists in the present and simultaneously as it existed in the past.
Why not?
Because the past structure is constantly updating based on your current focus. Your present beliefs act as an electromagnetic directive to your entire multidimensional personality.
So it's not about changing the objective historical facts, like I'm not erasing a broken leg from the history books.
No, it's about changing the cellular memory and the active psychological resonance of that event.
Oh, okay, that makes so much more sense. So how does that play out in real life?
Well, let's say you sit in your present moment and you constantly focus on the belief that your early childhood was entirely negative, damaging, and devoid of love.
Okay, so I'm hyper fixating on the trauma.
Right. By holding that belief, you are actively adjusting the currents of those probability tributaries. You are reaching back along the spokes of the wheel and selectively highlighting only the negative experiences.
Growing them right into my present.
Yes. And you are literally repressing or erasing the cellular memory of any positive events that also occurred back then. You are hypnotizing yourself from the present moment.
Wow. So I'm essentially writing my own victim narrative in real time.
Exactly. But if you shift your belief in the present to recognize your resilience, if you seek out the hidden strengths you gained from your past, you alter the electromagnetic connection to those past events.
I insert new memory, like both psychologically and physically.
Yes, into your past. The past is not a static room you left behind. It is a dynamic, living environment that you are constantly redecorating from the present.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you practically as you go about your day? It means you are never at the mercy of a traumatic past. You are not a victim of what happened 10 years ago.
Because the you of 10 years ago is happening right now.
Right. And you are in constant communication with them. This brings us to the absolute core mantra of this entire philosophy, which is a vital teaching from the nature of personal reality.
It is the foundation of it all.
Yeah, Seth dictates a phrase that is capitalized in the original text. The present is the point of power. It is the exact intersection where your multidimensional spirit meets physical matter.
And if you assign greater force to the past, if you believe your past trauma dictates your current limitations, you are willingly bleeding away your own energy.
You're denying yourself your innate power to shape your reality.
Yes, and shaping that reality requires a deep understanding of what your thoughts actually are.
Yeah.
Because to grasp how the present acts as a point of power, we must look at the tools of that power.
Which brings us to Seth's concept of the electromagnetic self.
Exactly. In the Seth material, consciousness is not just an abstract philosophical concept. It has a literal, measurable electromagnetic reality.
Measurable, even if we don't have the instruments for it yet.
Right. Currently beyond our physical scientific instruments, but physically real nonetheless. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your passing daydreams, and your deep-seated emotions are not phantoms.
They aren't just shadow images locked inside your brain.
No, they are highly sophisticated living electromagnetic units, which Seth calls EE units.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Seth doesn't just say thoughts are energy, he compares them to viruses.
Yes, it's a brilliant comparison.
He says your thoughts are alive, they are always present, they are highly responsive, and they possess their own kind of mobility.
Just as a biological virus travels through your physical bloodstream looking for cells to interact with, your thoughts are chemically propelled.
They travel through the universal body. They're living electromagnetic cells that dictate the overall functioning of your physical cells. But, and I have to ask this, how does this not just devolve into, like, toxic positivity?
Ah, yes, the whole just think good thoughts trap.
Exactly. If I just think, I'm a millionaire 1,000 times, why doesn't $1 million materialize in my living room?
Because it is not about surface-level linguistic thoughts. You can't just chant words. It is about the deeply held core emotional belief.
This stuff vibrating underneath.
Yes. Your surface thoughts might say, I want $1 million. But if your core vibrating electromagnetic belief is, I am unworthy of wealth, or money is a source of anxiety, that is the frequency you are actually broadcasting.
And this raises an important question about how these frequencies actually translate into physical events, right?
Exactly. To understand this, we have to formally introduce Framework 2.
Right. I mentioned Framework 2 right at the beginning of the deep dive. Let's finally define exactly what that is, because it's the engine room of this whole operation.
Okay, so Framework 1 is the physical world you perceive with your senses.
Like the world of gravity, physical cause and effect, the desk you are sitting at.
Right. Then Framework 2 is the vast, invisible psychological medium behind it. Seth calls it the mental studio.
The mental studio, I love that.
It is the non-physical environment where all probabilities exist and where the actual work of creating physical reality is done. Framework 2 is highly sensitive.
Meaning it responds perfectly to the specific frequency of the E units you broadcast.
Perfectly. It acts as an infinite, flawless information and organizational service.
So when I hold a core belief, say a deep resonant belief, that the world is a hostile place, I am constantly pumping specific EE units into Framework 2.
Precisely. And Framework 2 takes those EE units and computes the probabilities with blinding speed.
And then what? It spits out events.
It organizes the seemingly chance encounters, the coincidences, the phone calls you receive, and the physical events of Framework 1 to perfectly match the frequency you are broadcasting.
So the physical world is just a readout. It is the printed receipt of the transactions happening in Framework 2.
That is a perfect way to phrase it.
It's the rendering engine again. Framework 2 is the engine where the events are constructed based on the code like the E units, the core beliefs that you are constantly inputting.
Yes, exactly. And for those listening who might feel this is entirely too mystical, we have to point out that this isn't just some isolated fringe channeling phenomenon from the 1970s.
No, it is absolutely not. If we connect this to the bigger picture of empirical consciousness research, we see striking, undeniable parallels.
We really do.
Like, take Robert Monroe's pioneering work. He spent decades studying out-of-body states at the Monroe Institute. He didn't use channeling. He used specific audio frequencies to alter human brainwaves.
Right, the hemisync technology.
Exactly. And he methodically mapped various focus levels of consciousness. When Monroe described Focus 12, the state of expanded awareness, where the physical body is asleep, but the mind is awake and perceiving non-physical data.
Or Focus 15, which he literally termed the state of no time.
Yes, he was describing the exact experiential edges of Framework 2. And Focus 21, which Monroe called the bridge to other reality systems, maps perfectly to Seth's description of how consciousness traverses probability streams.
And it goes even further into modern physics. Look at Tom Campbell.
Right, a former NASA physicist who actually worked directly with Monroe.
Yes. Campbell's massive work, My Big TOE, which stands for Theory of Everything, describes our entire reality as a consciousness-based information system.
It's all just data and consciousness interacting.
Exactly. Campbell's entire mathematical model relies on the idea that consciousness makes choices that decrease entropy within an information system. This perfectly aligns with Seth's teaching.
The idea that you create your reality isn't just a New Age affirmation.
No, it is a literal description of how a consciousness-based information system functions.
So when I shift a belief, I'm not just changing my mood. I'm literally changing my frequency in the consciousness system. And the system responds by reorganizing my physical experience.
That is exactly what Seth taught, decades before these other researchers.
Okay, so this is all incredibly profound. We've established that we are multidimensional beings, generating probable universes, communicating with our past and future selves.
And literally rendering physical matter through the electromagnetic output of our beliefs.
Right. But let's be real for a second. Let's bring this down to earth. How does a normal human being, equipped with a regular, linearly trained brain, actually cope with experiencing this vastness?
It is not easy.
It's one thing for us to sit here in a theoretical deep dive and talk about simultaneous time, but it's another thing entirely to wake up on a Tuesday morning, have to pay your taxes, and try to live as a multidimensional gestalt.
The contrast is jarring, to say the least.
Exactly. Which is why we have to look at the life of Jane Roberts herself. The woman who channeled this material, the very person bringing this data through, struggled deeply, physically and psychologically, with the reality of it.
She did indeed, and her struggle is paramount to this discussion. Jane's journey is a vital part of understanding this material.
Because it makes it real for the rest of us.
Exactly. It grounds these massive metaphysical concepts in a personal, lived, flesh and blood experience. She wasn't just a passive telephone taking dictation from Seth. She was actively experiencing the phenomena he described.
Right, like in the unknown reality.
Yes. In that book, Jane didn't just write about probable selves. She experienced direct, visceral contact with them. Seth guided her, while she was in a trance state, to actively perceive alternate versions of her own life.
Let's unpack that specific experience, because it wasn't a vague, blurry dream. Jane had a vivid, direct, waking vision of a probable reality where she had never met her husband, Rob Butts.
And Rob was everything to her.
Right. Rob was her anchor, her co-creator of this work, her life partner. And suddenly, she is dropped into the consciousness of a Jane who took a completely different path.
In this alternate reality, she had pursued an entirely different career.
She was living in a different location. And she wasn't just watching this like a movie. She was experiencing the life of this other Jane. She felt the emotion. She saw the physical environment around her. She understood the entire trajectory of that life.
And what's fascinating here is Jane's initial reaction, which mirrors how any of us would react. Her linear, rationally trained 20th century mind immediately tried to shut it down and dismiss it.
She thought she was losing it, right?
She did. She thought it was just a daydream. She worried it was a hallucination or her imagination running wild, or even a sign of psychological fracturing.
So Seth had to step in.
Yes. Seth had to intervene forcefully and explicitly validate the experience. He explained to Jane that these were not mere daydreams. They were valid, independently existing realities occurring simultaneously to her own.
He had to reassure her that tuning into them, like expanding her VR headset to see another screen, didn't mean she was losing her grip on her own primary identity.
Exactly. But she still struggled with it deeply. And the biggest hurdle wasn't just the probable selves, it was the concept of simultaneous time.
Right, because her conscious mind, exactly like yours and mine, was heavily trained in linear cause and effect thinking.
Yeah.
You do A, then B happens, then C.
It's neat, it's tidy, it keeps you safe.
Exactly. The idea that A, B, and C are all happening at once and that C could retroactively alter A, it absolutely terrified her outer ego.
It was an existential terror. She experienced severe physical and psychological delays in producing the material because her ego felt like its very boundaries were dissolving.
Because if the past, present, and future are all happening right now, where does the ego stand?
Right. What is its purpose? The ego's job is to navigate physical reality based on past memories to predict future threats. If time is simultaneous, the ego feels like it is being completely bypassed.
It felt like a literal threat to her survival.
Yes. And this wasn't just a mental hurdle. This struggle manifested incredibly physically for Jane. We have to look at how an abstract belief translates into biology.
Which ties right back to what we discussed earlier about cellular probabilities.
Exactly. We must touch upon her internal battle with what Seth called the sinful self.
The sinful self. Yes, this is a crucial concept. Jane harbored a deeply ingrained, subconscious, and highly critical belief that in order to handle these profound, multidimensional revelations, she needed to be perfectly pure.
She believed she needed to be a super perfect superhuman. She felt she had to be flawless to justify being the conduit for this work.
Right. It's the ultimate imposter syndrome. I mean, if you're the mouthpiece for the universe's greatest secrets, you can't just be a regular person who gets grumpy or eats junk food or has flaws.
Right, to be a living saint.
Exactly. And because she was wonderfully, inherently human and not super perfect, this internal conflict, this massive gap between her human reality and her sinful self-belief created an intense psychological bondage.
Now, remember what we said about EAT units in Framework 2? Jen was constantly broadcasting the core belief. I am flawed, I am unworthy of this knowledge, I need to be stopped before I go too far.
And Framework 2 responded.
Seth described this belief as a self-image that encased her body as if in concrete. It physically manifested as severe bodily symptoms, specifically debilitating rheumatoid arthritis.
Her joints locked up.
Yes, she lost her mobility. She unconsciously used her physical symptoms as a way to turn down the thermostat on her psychic abilities, to anchor herself forcefully in Framework 1.
To protect herself from diving too far, too fast, into these terrifying unknown realities. Here's where it gets really interesting. Jane's physical crisis is the perfect mirror for your journey.
As you listen to this and as you start to realize how powerful you are, you will hit this exact same wall.
We all have to dismantle our linear training to access our greater identity. We all harbor those sinful self-beliefs that tell us we aren't worthy.
Or that it's arrogant to think we create our own reality.
Right, or that we need to be spiritually perfect before we can tap into Framework 2. Jane's physical body practically shut down under the weight of that rigid superhuman expectation. She ended up hospitalized, facing severe hearing loss, an underactive thyroid, and profound painful immobility.
Yet it was precisely through that intense physical crisis, that extended hospital stay, that the super-perfect self-image finally cracked and crumbled.
How so?
She realized she couldn't maintain the facade. Stripped of her independence, relying on others for basic care, she found a deep camaraderie with the nurses and doctors.
She found a fellowship in simply being a vulnerable physical creature.
Right. Exactly. She finally allowed herself to be imperfect. And in doing so, she opened the door to her more native, realistic image. She stopped fighting the material.
And how did she practically integrate it? Like, how did she get past the terror of simultaneous time.
They're rigorous daily work and specific exercises. One of the most important was an exercise Seth gave her called psi time, or psychological time.
Let's break down the mechanics of side time because it's not just regular meditation.
It is not. In psi time, Jane practiced actively shifting her focus away from physical clock time. She would sit quietly and purposefully dial down the input of her physical senses.
Dimming the VR headset.
Yes. She would tune into the inner rhythm of her consciousness, feeling time not as a ticking clock, but as an expansion of awareness. It feels physically like a sensation of floating, a profound stillness where the urgency of the next moment completely vanishes.
Oh, wow. Just resting in that eternal present hub.
Over years of practicing this, Jane began to experience time differently. She shifted from feeling like she was swept along by that linear river to viewing time as a vast, fluid landscape. She realized she wasn't a victim of time, she was the navigator of it.
She proved that the ego doesn't shatter when it touches the multidimensional self. It doesn't die. It actually becomes more flexible, more resilient, and far more capable.
Exactly. Which brings us to the most important part of this deep dive, the pivot.
Yes, the pivot. We've explored the dense theory. We've looked at Jane's intense, lived struggle with the material. Now we're going to shift from theoretical exploration to highly practical, advanced application.
Because theory isn't enough.
Right. How do you, listening to this right now, actually use this in your daily life?
This is where we apply the physics of consciousness. If these probable selves are real, and Seth assures us they are, and if energy flows constantly between them in the gestalt of your greater identity, then it stands to reason that the boundaries between you and them are permeable.
Meaning we can talk to them.
You can consciously access them. You can deliberately draw upon the latent abilities, the courage, and the wisdom earned by your probable selves.
Okay, let's unpack this advanced technique. We're going to walk through the exact step-by-step mechanics of how to access a probable self. This is something you can do today.
Step 1 is to identify the road not taken. I want you to look back at your life and identify one major divergent path. This should be a significant branching point where you truly weighed two options.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
Perhaps it was a relationship you deeply considered, invested time in, but ultimately walked away from. Perhaps it was a career path you abandoned in favor of something more secure or entirely different. Or maybe it was a geographic move, a city you almost moved to but didn't. Find that specific fork in the road.
Got it. So you, the listener, have that specific branching point in your mind. Step 2 is the physical preparation. This is where we apply Jane's psi-time mechanics.
Right, the preparation is key.
You need to sit quietly in a comfortable chair. Take a few deep breaths. The mechanical goal here is to consciously shift your focus away from the physical senses, away from the VR headset of Framework 1.
You are quieting the linear mind. You aren't trying to fall asleep. You are trying to remain awake while shutting off the external data feed.
And then comes step 3.
Step 3 is the core of the practice, the intention and the question. In that quiet, inwardly focused state, you set the explicit, conscious intention to connect with the probable self who did take that path.
So you're sending out a signal.
You are literally reaching out through the psychological medium of Framework 2. You are directing your EE units toward the version of you who married that person, who took that demanding job, or who moved to that foreign city.
And then what? Do I just wait?
And then you ask them silently, clearly, and directly, what did you learn that I can use now?
Now, step 4 is absolutely crucial here, managing expectations. Because if you do this expecting a Hollywood movie moment, you will block the actual data.
Oh, absolutely. Expecting a booming voice is a Framework 1 limitation.
Right. You are not going to hear a booming cinematic voice in your head giving you a TED Talk on what they learned.
What's fascinating here is how subtle yet profound the communication often is. You should expect a feeling.
Like an intuition.
Yes. You might experience a sudden intuitive insight, a spontaneous download of confidence, or a flash of clarity regarding a problem you've been facing in your current reality. The wisdom of your probable selves rarely arrives as language. It arrives as a shift in your own emotional tone, a sudden knowingness, or an unexplainable sense of peace.
So what does this all mean mechanically? I mean, how does this actually work? I'm sitting in my living room asking a question to an invisible version of myself. How does the answer actually cross over the void?
It works because, as we discussed, there is no true void. The boundaries between selves are fluid in Framework 2.
Because it's all one gestalt.
Right. Your thoughts and intentions are real electromagnetic realities. When you focus your intent toward a probable self, You create a highly charged field of relatedness. You are literally building a bridge of electromagnetic units between your reality and theirs.
And because we share that root identity, the data can just flow back.
Exactly. Because you share a source code, the latent abilities and the hard-won wisdom earned by that probable self can flow across that bridge. It translates through Framework 2 and is drawn directly into your present physical reality.
Wow.
To cement this concept, listen to this verbatim quote from Seth, which summarizes the entire architecture. You are not one self. You are a gestalt of selves, a family of consciousness.
A family of consciousness, I mean, that changes everything. It means you are never alone.
Never.
You are never flying blind. Because right now, you are actively supported by the infinite variations of your own soul's exploration. Every choice you didn't make is still serving you.
Exactly. And the most empowering aspect of this multidimensional architecture is that the exchange is entirely mutual.
Wait, really? We help them too?
Yes. Just as you draw upon their courage or their insight to help you navigate a current problem, they are simultaneously drawing upon the unique strengths, the endurance, and the specific wisdom you have developed in your specific physical focus. The entire gestalt, the entire family grows richer through this conscious interaction.
Which means it's time for the 24-hour challenge. We don't just want you to think about this as an interesting theory. We want you to put the physics of Framework 2 into practice immediately.
Yes, this is something you have to experience to fully grasp.
So your mission is to spend just 5 to 10 minutes today attempting this connection.
Here are the exact actionable steps for your 24-hour challenge. First, choose one specific road not taken. Second, sit quietly, shift your focus inward, set your intention to connect, and ask the prompt, what wisdom do you have for me?
And finally, this is the crucial instruction here. Keep a pen and paper handy. Write down absolutely whatever comes to mind in the moments following the question.
Don't edit it. Don't second guess it.
Right. It might be abstract feelings, disjointed images, random words, or sudden unrelated memories. Do not judge or filter the information as it arrives. Just capture it.
The analytical, linear mind of Framework 1 will desperately want to dismiss it all as mere imagination or coincidence. But you must bypass that filter and simply record the data.
Treat it like a raw data transmission. Just take the dictation. You can analyze it later. As we wrap up this deep dive into the architecture of your soul, I want to leave you with one final mind-bending paradigm shift to mull over as you go about your day.
This is a powerful one.
If time is truly simultaneous, and all versions of you exist right now in a massive family of consciousness, consider this. What if your sudden urges to try something new, or those random bursts of unexplained resilience you sometimes feel when you are at your lowest, aren't just random brain chemistry?
What if they are a communication?
Right. What if they are the moments when one of your probable selves is reaching out to you for strength and you are successfully answering the call? Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember how vast you truly are.